What's up, everyone? It is 3 p.m. on a Sunday afternoon, which means you're tuning in for cannabis legalization news. I'm producer Lauren, and today we're going to be joined by Melissa and Dre from South Dakotans for Better Marijuana Laws. They're going to tell us about the two measures that they have going on the ballot. It's going to be here in November, so let's get right into it. Hey, Melissa, Miggy, Dre, and Tom, what's going on? Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday, everybody.
Yeah, happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday.
All right, well, let's dive in because South Dakota, I was trying to think of what the name of the nickname for the state. Like, we're in the land of Lincoln. I just did a video on the Sunshine State. Miggy, what's Washington State's like little motto thing?
Evergreen State.
Evergreen State. Okay. What is South Dakota's motto?
It is the Sunshine State, isn't it?
No,
That's Florida.
that's
Florida.
All right. Well,
I believe right now we are considered South Dakota is what we're on the national as.
South Dakota.
South Dakota.
Yep. Well, to
That's what
celebrate
they're calling
South
it.
Dakota, I decided to put myself on Mount Rushmore. If only it was so easy for Trump to do. Now, you guys have a great organization, and it's called South Dakotans for Better Marijuana Laws.
That's right.
Yes.
Awesome. Why don't you just describe us a little bit about your organization?
Well, South Dakotans for Better Marijuana Laws is the umbrella organization that is essentially sponsoring both Amendment A and Initiated Measure 26. So we have two initiatives, but as I said, the umbrella organization that sort of pays the bills is South Dakotans for Better Marijuana Laws.
Excellent. And so it is a ballot initiative state. Do you have to amend your constitution?
We are on Amendment A. Initiated Measure 26, as Melissa will tell you, is a statute. But Amendment A is a constitutional amendment, and we're doing it as a constitutional amendment simply to protect it from the greedy hands of the legislature.
Speaking of the greedy hands of the legislature, I just got done with the Florida laws episode. So likes and subscribes if you want to tune in for more Florida law stuff. That'll be coming out this week. And then also the amendments and the greediness. How have you drafted the amendments language to provide for the legal cannabis industry to come to South Dakota?
Oh, do you want me to answer?
Go ahead.
Melissa, take it.
Absolutely.
Okay. So we drafted, it's interesting how these are structured. IM 26 is drafted to be a complete in-state industry. We drafted it so that to be part of South Dakota's cannabis industry, you have to be from South Dakota. That was one thing we were really adamant about doing, is to ensure that our state and our people are the ones that get to participate, and it's not monopolized by people that are currently doing that in other states. Unfortunately, I do work in the industry, so I travel frequently for work, and I've seen what these companies will do when you get like a giant publicly traded company that will come in and it'll smash all your small producers. Yeah.
And then,
Yep.
but don't they have? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just saying though, even though you put like these barriers for just the local people, can't they still, like they always do, say, "Hey, local person, here's 100,000. Now we own 49%." I mean, they still have the power of it, but you're still gonna have big players coming in, no?
Probably, but we did make it so that that first principal officer has to be a South Dakota resident, and they have to be a voting member. So no in-name onlys. You have to actively sit on your board. You have to have a place at the table.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were. I was going to ask the ownership percentage, because, like, great. I love that the South Dakotans are going to be able to have some generational wealth coming to them this fall if they legalize it. But how much of the pie of ownership for these organizations that are coming to South Dakota would have to be a voting South Dakota resident?
We'd like to see 100%, but one of the things that we do know is that the South Dakota legislature will do some finagling to make it more beneficial for them, which is why we have Amendment A. So Amendment A has stipulations in it that go for industrial hemp, adult use, and then it has this really sweet little paragraph that says, once Amendment A passes, it will absorb IM 26, our medical program, and make it so the state does not have the right to change it. So they cannot change the intent of the bill.
we've had a real problem in South Dakota with passing progressive ballot initiatives and then have the legislature gut them. One prime example was in 2016, we passed the South Dakota Anti-Corruption Act. And within a few weeks, literally within a few weeks, the legislature gutted it. They didn't like it. They thought the restrictions on them were just too harsh. And we also had campaign finance reform in it, which is hard to believe we could pass that in South Dakota, but we did. And the legislature eliminated that, and they gutted the rest of the provisions. So by putting Amendment A together and protecting Initiative Measure 26, we make it so that they can't get at it. The legislature cannot change the Constitution on its own. So that's the genius, if that's the right word, for Amendment A.
Okay, so if they can't change the amendment, and we want more businesses, especially the South Dakotan-owned businesses, to come to the great state of the Badlands, what type of licensing structure will you have? Is it going to be a vertically integrated structure, or is it going to be horizontally integrated?
Great question. We did it. So you can do complete vertical integration at 5,000 per level. So it will start out, you can do your cultivation, your distribution, your dispensary, processing, extraction, all of that. You can be integrated from seed to shelf, but you're going to pay for each level of that.
That is great. And that's one of the problems that they're having in states like Florida, where their amendment is written in the disjunctive, but then the legislature came in and said, no, you have to do all of them. And so the people said, we want to do any of them. And then the legislature goes, no, all of them. And so I was wondering if you were worried that the South Dakota legislature would try to squeeze out any of the mom and pop or the Main Street businesses by requiring a vertical integration to be able to qualify for a cannabis license.
No, we do not want them, because I'll be honest, I'm going to participate in an industry, but I only want to cultivate. I have no interest in anything else. Maybe 10 years from now, I might want a dispensary, but I don't want to have to hold multiple licenses to do one thing. And so we didn't want to do that. Amendment A, I think a lot of people don't understand what it does is it requires the South Dakota legislature that if they want to change either one of these, they have to take it back to a vote for the people. They have to put it back on the ballot, and they have to let everybody in the state of South Dakota vote on changing them. So what we've done is created a safeguard. I call it the armor, the medical armor for our patients.
Yeah, you did mention the medical. So you guys do have medical then. There is a medical program already there?
That's what IM26 is.
Right.
It's amazing. So currently, right now, as we sit here in South Dakota, there is no industry.
There's nothing.
Yep.
And
Can you guys even have smokable hemp flower? Anything?
Nope. And it's a felony in our state to ingest. So every time I step off a plane when I'm out of state working for weeks at a time, the minute I hit South Dakota soil, I'm a felon.
What's the barometer in South Dakota?
I do like the ability to go to Rushmore without having to become a felon. And that is nice because nope, not in Illinois. And that's one of the things that, I mean, Miggy and I will talk about how when we're traveling amongst other states, it's like, man, you just feel so much better when you get to a state where, you're not a criminal.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, technically on Rushmore, you're always a criminal because that's federal land, right?
True. But in
South Dakota in general, what's the barometer as far as like the attitude towards cannabis? People in general. I mean, I know it's a predominantly staunch area, but even the staunchiest of people, like McConnell, I mean, of all people, help legalize hemp. I mean, the Dark Emperor. How does that work? I mean, why are there so much resistance up there?
Well,
in South Dakota, we have the dark.
We're going to find out how much resistance there is. I mean, we believe that we're going to be able to pass medicinal, and we believe we're going to be able to pass Amendment A as well. It's going to be close. Medicinal I think, is going to fail for you, to be honest. Adult use is going to be closer. But we polled a year ago, and the polling was convincing enough that we decided to come in and take a run at it. And I think if I had a gun to my head and I had to be right, I would say we're going to pass Amendment A as well.
I was going to be like, well, that's fantastic. And then I was going to ask, what's the polling data that you're seeing out there for, because you're doing both of them. You're going for medical and recreational. This is going to be historic. This is like Missouri was trying to beat you guys. Well, Missouri was trying to join you guys by getting on the ballot to be the quickest state to go from medical to legal in 2 years. And so what South Dakota is set up to do is become the first state in the states of all of them to go medical and adult use at the same ballot. So
right.
Let's talk about how the polling's looking for first the medical and then the adult use.
Well, we haven't polled for it for a year, and we. I don't think they would be very happy if I got into the specifics even of a year ago. But I can tell you that it was positive enough for both that Marijuana Policy Project decided to help fund this initiative, and we're also funding it obviously locally as well. Melissa has been working on this issue on medicinal for many years. This is the first time we've taken a run at adult use in South Dakota.
It's kind of neat. So this is like the medical activist side of it and the recreational logistics side of it, and then you guys just kind of meet each other and join forces to create one great big law. But you would think too with the polling, I mean, it just seems for the past at least 7 years, polling has been positive for cannabis nationally. So, like, I mean, just to assume that, like, what, do we just skip South Dakota? I mean, what happened? Like, overall, there's got to be a good positive attitude there, I think, as citizens.
There is. What happened is we attempted. So 26 has been legislatively sponsored in its entirety twice. So we've debated. We've went to the table with Department of Public Safety, the governor's office, Department of Health, the DCI. We've sat down with everybody and said, okay, you hate what we're doing, but what can we do to make this less of a contentious conversation? Where can we bring this together? And it's funny now that we're on the ballot and we're working towards this gigantic vote in November. They haven't come out in opposition to us yet. They've made some small comments and did like a public statement, but nobody's come out swinging because we gave them everything they asked for.
Did you give them the tax dollars?
They got the tax dollars.
They like that.
They did. And we made an independent board for the state to manage the program, and they asked for a seat at the table. And before I told them that they were so disrespectful, we weren't going to give them a seat at the table. And then we sat down and I quit being a brat because sometimes I just want to dig my heels in and not move. And I moved and I gave them a seat at the table. We expanded it out, put the Attorney General's office in there and the DCI and law enforcement and said, okay, we gave you a seat at the table. Now it's time to stop fighting. And they're very quiet. It's very quiet in South Dakota right now. It's eerie almost.
Well, isn't it always very quiet in South Dakota? Correct me if I'm wrong. There's 800,000 people there.
No, when it comes to politics, everybody screams here. Everybody.
Well, is that because they're so far away? They're like, hey, Gus, fuck that issue.
Opie, you cannot have this. That's more where they go. But no, South Dakota.
Shout out to the MPP though. That's really sweet of them for coming in and like stepping up. And they've really changed a lot of laws over their 25 years. And I hope that this is one of them. Let's talk about how. Let's go to a fantastic time in the future. Call it November 5th of this year. And both of them have won. What does the landscape look like if I want to open, and I am from South Dakota, Yankton, South Dakota, let's say, a dispensary?
You would have to apply for a license with the state. I always tell people, because people come to us now and ask us, what do I need to do? I tell people right now, start having conversations with your community, the county that you live in, the city you live in.
That's right.
Because that is what I did do is I also wrote the bill. So I work in California a lot and I have a friend that lives in Siskiyou County, which is a dry county. Everybody is probably aware of that.
Well, it's California. Flip a coin. That's the chances that it's a dry county. Yeah.
Well, where my friend lives, they were dropping people's greenhouses off the side of mountains last year.
Oh, fuck. That's just property destruction. And no, of course, because if you are in California and an operator, you may or may not have your papers in order.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So in South Dakota, they can't have a dry county. They can limit the number of licenses they give out, but they cannot create a dry county. So I tell everybody, start having conversations with the people around you in your community. I live in a really red community, and where I want to cultivate is kind of in town. And so I've been having this conversation for about 6 months with people, and just
What kind of red does South Dakota red look like? Because I think the liberals and the conservatives, and one for some reason is team blue and the other one's team red. They have different philosophies depending on what state we're in. So like I think the reds out in like Washington and Nevada and Colorado are more like the libertarian free, like personal freedom reds. And then the ones that are more in like Illinois and New Jersey and the East Coast are they're like the moral smugness type of reds, where it's like good people would never. I am going to tell Jesus I see him every Sunday.
Welcome to South Dakota. The soil bleeds
so
red here.
Oh,
yes.
Well, we do have a libertarian streak, particularly in the western part of the state. It's very Republican, but it's also fairly libertarian in many attitudes, much more so than in the eastern part of the state, East River, where the people are a little bit, the Republicans are a little bit more like what you just described as Illinois, I think. But
on the west side of the state, they're all mountain people.
The mountain people, though, aren't they? Wouldn't the mountain people be like, "Well, I need that hemp for my my pain," because they're trying to be self-sufficient. They don't want to buy Advil. I got weed out there. That's why I got the Hindu Kush strain.
Exactly, and they tell us we do outreach program through Outvote right now. And I had a gentleman text me back last week, and he's like, "I'm a libertarian. I'm voting yes, but leave me alone."
That's right.
Like,
that's right.
Go away.
He's just basically saying, "How's the homebrew situation? We're good.
Very good.
Cool.
We got homegirls.
I can buy one less gun."
Yep.
So, what about medical home grow? Is it going to be adult use home grow or medical home grow?
Oh, this is a fun conversation. So let me give you a little history. I was here first doing all of the stuff with medical. So our medical bill came first, and then MPP came in a year and a half ago and said, well, we're going to come to South Dakota and we're going to fund adult use. And I'm pretty sure my head spun around a few times, and I was like, excuse me, you're going to come to our state and not do medical? Like, why would you not do medical? Yeah. So they were going to come do home grows, or not home grows, adult use. And I was like, okay, well, everything that medical needs, we're going to write into it. So we have home cultivation. We wrote it really kind of neat. So you have to have a 3-plant minimum, but we didn't put a plant maximum, or we're going to just let the federal law or the federal maximum apply here. I put a caregiver program in there to allow people that wanted to use their plant counts to have somebody grow for them. And then we have a dispensary model. I basically took every single piece of legislation and ballot initiatives been wrote all across the nation. We picked out all of the pieces that worked, took out pieces that didn't work, and we put them in the bill. It's actually 95 sections long, 25 pages.
Melissa, since you're a medical advocate and you have the medical presence there in South Dakota, because as we talked before, I've driven through that place. I know it's very staunch and there's very negative people, but again, it's America. It's a place where me as an American shouldn't be afraid to just show up and do whatever. And the fact that you love this place so much, you're like, you know what? I'm gonna bring these guys marijuana. We're gonna have that conversation and do marijuana things. Because the medical is where it usually starts for all states. Yeah. And you guys are going with this 1-2 punch, and like, look, we're going to start. You have 2 conversations there. There's the wellness conversation, which it'll benefit an aging, staunch, constituent, and then there's the recreational side of it. Like, hey, if people from out of state can visit, because you have beautiful country, and
really, it's beautiful.
Yeah. So camping is an option.
And you can drive 80 miles an hour down the highway, right?
I know. And you can read all of our liquor billboards that tell you should definitely drink Lord Calvert while shooting pheasants in South Dakota, because that's the best idea.
That is America right there.
That's is America.
Wait, you're telling me to be drunk, speeding down the highway, shooting at birds?
Yes.
Well, I got a place. Wait. No taxes? How's the tax situation in South Dakota? Is there basically nothing?
Well, there's no income tax.
Nope. And we have the largest. Well, we have a population that has swollen quite largely.
Yeah, but I mean, again, when you have a population of 800,000, you go up by 50,000. It's statistically a huge dent. But like a Florida goes up by like 200,000, it would still probably be proportionally less. I mean, so it's.
Tom, you would know this. Is South Dakota the place where all the credit card companies are based out of?
A lot. Yeah.
And-
Well, it has to do with the law. Favored.
Yep.
It's a. I mean, there's money in South Dakota. As
yeah.
low population as it is, it's the millionaires and these guys you got to approach who own 60 acres or 80 acres. You know, the ranchers and.
We
you
just
know,
need like one of them to be like a weed snob and move in and just get all his buddies that are shooting the pheasants on board with it. And they'll be like, wait,
Yeah.
we can make how much money on this? But then you have to be careful because then they'll try to like squeeze out and create monopolies like they do in other states. So
Absolutely.
one of the ways that we combated that in Illinois is license caps. Have there been license caps built into your guys' legal, your medical or your adult use?
We did not put them in there. What we did do, and adult use has it too, they are not able to make a dry county, but they can limit the number of licenses. So every county will have one, but it doesn't mean every county is going to have 500 of them. They may
Yeah.
only have 5.
Yeah,
is it two different licenses?
What?
Medical and recreational, are they two different licenses?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we are trying to create 2 paths forward. I've watched states like Washington and Oregon absorb their medical programs after adult use has come, and then we are passing taxes back to patients that can't afford it. And so when MPP came in, we had a lot of really great conversations about moving together on the same path, but with 2 different directions. So we get adult use, and we also get medical. Adult use is where our taxes are. Medical, we have no taxes for our patients. We pass them all back onto the business and the licensees.
Yeah, we tax our medicals in Illinois, but we allow for medical home grow. Miggy, correct me if I'm wrong. So does Washington State. So as long as they allow for safe access, and like if you allow medical home grow, the price for access to a patient just plummets. It just drops off a cliff, and
Yes.
that's important. And so if you want to have access to an adequate supply of premium cannabis, great, go for it. But don't get in the way of the guy who's trying to grow his medicine. Sure, you don't have to smoke his stuff, but at least let him have it, or her. Yeah.
And it's important for people, especially those who make their own consumables for like our cancer patients. If you're buying consumables through a dispensary, you're spending a lot of money. It's a lot of money to keep a cancer patient comfortable.
RSO is expensive. That stuff's
Very
like
expensive.
$60-$80 a gram in Illinois. A gram.
Oh.
Yeah.
And you can make it. Go ahead. What was your
I was
question?
just going to ask, what's the expectation though for like stores? Do you expect to see like one store having both medical and recreational, or are you going to have like single? Because it just seems to be like the startup. Like somebody's saying, okay, I'm going to open a store today and it's going to be medical only. Well, I don't think the funding will be there, the ability, because the patients, right? You're going to have the needs. So, what is the expectation?
I see them opening together, much like Colorado's have, when you can go in and you can buy either on the adult use program or you can buy medically. It's just a matter of, adjusting those taxes for the patient. So I do foresee that. That's what I envision with both programs, is that if you open a dispensary in South Dakota, you're selling the same products in both markets.
Same here. Same. I mean, Miggy, do they still have medical retail in Washington State, or is it just medical home grow basically now?
So the medical here is so fucked up. It's just, first there's the for the growers to call themselves medical. There's a program for that, and there's a requirement for testing for that. And then that's the growers themselves deciding that this is these steps I want to be involved in the medical field. And then there are some markets, right? There are some people growing and doing markets, but there's not many. I only know of 2. Back when it was prime medical days, there was 10 within a 50-mile radius.
Yep.
And that's markets. We had 1,000 dispensaries, medical dispensaries at the time, and now I think we're in the hundreds. So there's an imbalance, but with the recreational, what I see too is always you're going to have the big money, right? No one likes the MedMen, the Truliefs, the Walmarts, the Amazons.
Yep.
We don't want this shit, but these guys are funding the recreational shit that's going to help.
Bless you.
Get you through
Yeah,
medical.
Checker allude to me.
THC makes me sneeze.
Yeah. I was on a tangent. I'm smoking some infused here, right? So
Well, that was one of the interesting things that I was just listening to about the lineages, about all the different types, and how haze really wouldn't be necessarily a strain that people would grow commercially today, because there's too much of that corporate greed, where the people don't really understand the industry that much. They're just like, oh man, let's go get a bag and we can get high, more or less. And so because of that, then no, it's not their fault. Imagine that wine was illegal. All right, forever. And so like you got to see wine and you only got to have it once. That is an injustice to wine, because how many different frickin' types of wines are there? There's so many different flavors and varietals and grapes and methods of preparation and climates. And it's the exact same thing in cannabis. And so there's some varietals like the haze strain. So I was like reading into the background of the haze strain, which was just fascinating. And then you're like, man, it would take 9 weeks to flower.
Mhm.
Yeah, maybe like 9 to 12. You're like, I don't know if they're going to do that, And now they're going to try to get that sucker out in 60 days, 8 weeks, 7 if you can do it, and then just clone it and just try to hit print on something that really is as a life. You go and you buy apples, and the apples, for all intents and purposes, are exactly the same. And
No.
the pile in the batch. The pile and the batch are essentially all the same. But then like you have an apple and then you have a different batch of apples. There's so much variation. And so then by not having the ability to do the craft path where you can actually allow Main Street market, and by the middle market is a thing. The middle market is not Cresco. The middle market doesn't have a $2 billion market cap. The middle market is like $2 to $50 million. And if you just lock them out because you're doing the vertical integration stuff, the culture is what suffers. The people that are going to have access to high quality cannabis that would be true craft strains. Like you wouldn't want to homogenize this and try to just like churn it, So that's awesome. I'm glad that you're trying to bake that in, and I wish we had better data on the polling.
what are South Dakota?
Yeah.
Well, and it's funny because we should have asked before we hopped on if we could share polling, but we're polling again.
Good.
Sorry, I can say that, can I? We're polling again.
Can you give us a plus or minus margin of error?
We are just actually running polling. We had our last planning meeting for it on Friday, and I think the plan is to release some of it. See, this is why we have a political operative, because I'm a big mouth. I would have just told you.
I know better.
See,
I'm confident that the poll is going to show us with a pretty good lead. But here's the question. Question is when there's a negative attack made, then what happens? I've seen these initiatives that are poll in the 60s, and when the campaign comes against them, you lose a lot of your lead. And I've been on the painful side of that. But we'll be ready for them. We pretty much can sort of figure out what the attack is going to be, and I'm pretty confident we're going to pass it. I really, both of them. I really am.
Trey, you're a political guy, so like being the political guy, imagine you have like a dossier on each Congress guy in South Dakota that you got to deal with right now. What does their barometer look like? What are they attitudes on towards cannabis? At least medical, really, all of them, just negative. Just
there's no no, even the most progressive of them, to the extent that there's any progressiveness at all, but they don't have the ability really to support cannabis, because they would lose their Republican nomination. Frankly, that's the truth.
They just don't know what they're talking about. That's the problem. They're turning down an industry that can provide good jobs to South Dakotans, that can also provide good taxes, and that can provide alternatives to things that they're already buying that they shouldn't be buying, which is great. And then it can be entirely local. But there you have that prejudice. And have you figured out how do you address that prejudice where it's like, it's weed, bad people, come on, duh. And then what do?
Well, earlier you had said the Emperor of Darkness. See, in South Dakota, we have the Empress of Darkness. Have you read about our governor?
No.
Oh, you definitely should. She beat us up over hemp.
Who's that her?
She would be next to,
like,
go to the side and put Trump there, and then you can put our governor right there, because she's
gosh,
they're best buddies. So
they
we're getting
both lose money on casinos. It's funny because it's true.
It's
You
true.
know, the thing is, these politicians, these people, they have no soul, no real connection to any of this. You know, she's only against it because she thinks her party's like 100% behind her. But let's look at the pandering that just happened with Giuliani and the police recent endorsement of Trump when he's making fun of Kamala Harris for arresting people for smoking weed, and this dumb motherfucker is making these little gestures like this, like he's making a reinforced, solidified argument. And it's like, okay, we'll go with your argument there, buddy. But then that's the case. Let's legalize it everywhere. Let's not give a fuck. You know, I mean, why is this such a thing for you to pander to, make a joke, mock even while people sit in jail? It's horrible.
Well, our governor did start a campaign to combat the meth issue in our state. Did you guys see it?
No.
No, it says meth.
It's a national.
We're on it.
Oh, God. You guys were that campaign.
We are that campaign.
Oh,
Right.
That's us.
man.
Well,
And
then
then-
also
We're on it.
hemp arrest up there, right?
But yeah,
Like-
she basically was the governor that was telling people that hemp and marijuana were the same thing.
Well,
The
technically,
same
that's
thing.
true. Hemp
It
and
is true.
marijuana are the same thing. It's cannabis sativa. One of them legally has a particular line in the sand that says this particular cannabinoid is not present. That's it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Sure.
But she was telling people that this was the gateway. Hemp is a gateway to marijuana. And if we legalize hemp for farmers to grow in a field that they can't smoke, that we were legalizing marijuana by default.
But again, the argument, the fear mongering, if we legalize the gateway to what?
Yeah.
Right. We've argued that legalizing marijuana is a gateway, but it's a gateway to better roads, higher pay for teachers, many fewer opioid deaths, and on and on and on. That's the gateway. It's not a gateway to. And in fact, the other part of it is that if you're a kid, you can't get into if you're under 21, you can't get into a dispensary. But you can find an illicit dealer, and he's not even going to be necessarily selling you weed. He might be selling you methamphetamine or heroin or cocaine. So if you're really worried about gateway drugs, you should pass Amendment A so people can just go and get weed, as opposed to have to deal with these illicit drug dealers who will sell you anything. They're not checking IDs when a kid wants to buy something. I mean, they're just not.
And sadly, South Dakota, in the last 30 days, we've had 11 overdoses. 3 of them were deaths in the last 7 days. All kids. So I'm a mom. My oldest daughter is going to be 22 on Tuesday, and my youngest is 16. And these kids that are dying from these overdoses are right in my children's ages. So we had 2 24-year-old gentlemen die of overdoses a week ago. Meth is a huge thing in our state, and we're spending all of this money. Like 1 in 9 arrests in South Dakota are for marijuana. But,
Wow.
we have a felony for cannabis if you're arrested and drug tested going into jail. But we have all these people that are arrested on petty crimes going into our prison and court systems that are not drug tested for methamphetamine. They're never
Why not?
charged. We have no idea. They're
How
let
come
back out
drug
on.
tested for cannabis, but not for meth.
Exactly. They're
Well, maybe
both
the
felonies.
cannabis taxes can actually fund the meth tests, so we
We're
can really
hoping.
try to address the meth problem.
We're hoping we'll put Narcan in every vehicle in the state. I mean,
That's another good use. Yeah. And then
It's
giving them an opportunity to buy something besides meth. You got any weed? Nah, sorry. Got some meth.
yeah.
That's right. Exactly
They
right.
didn't care. They're just trying to make a sale.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it's
a
a
plug,
huge-
not a
Yeah,
cannabis.
the policy
It's not a
alone.
bud tender. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
policy is the reason why you have a meth problem. Period.
It's
If you had legal weed, you wouldn't have as bad of a meth problem, I don't think.
Well, that's true. I don't think there's any
Agreed.
doubt about that.
That's right.
well,
But
it's crazy to see how many of these people are in that 18 to 24 range that have died just in the last year in our state. And as a parent, that scares the shit out of me because I have kids. We live in a tiny little town. My daughter's been to a party one town over with a population of like 1,000. And they came home and they said, Mom, they had a Skittles party.
Oh,
So middle of America, South Dakota, these kids were taking their prescriptions from their parents and putting them in a bowl on a table, and kids
Oh.
were taking them. Like they call them Skittles parties, and I'm like,
okay. I'm
this
from a
is-
sheltered place. I
I
was
didn't know
like,
what it was.
they're eating Skittles. Okay.
Oh no.
This is a lame South Dakota story.
No.
Wait, they were just like taking each other's pharmaceutical drugs from their parents? What if one of them like,
died.
oh my God. Yeah.
Died. Yes.
Yeah.
That is
Anything.
their entertainment. And
Yeah.
I mean, like, we need so much more in South Dakota for resources, like things for kids to do. And like, we can fund
Seriously.
this. We can fund it, but they get into those parties where they're doing that. And then like meth isn't a big jump from banging down a bunch of opioids or some blood pressure meds at a
Well, that's
party.
the problem that I really didn't like with the opioids was like they go in there with their gosh darn doctor's gloves on and like their coat, and they're like, "Oh, Mr. Timpson, you have something that hurts." Here, no, that they fixed opioids; they're no longer addictive. Here you go. And then they hadn't fixed them; they had just lied and told the doctors they had. And so
Yep.
then you have this huge opioid addiction, and then they find out that they can't get it anymore. And heroin is how much? Wow,
It's pretty cheap.
That's right.
it's relatively cheap. I didn't think I'd end up here. You think I want to be here? No, they clearly don't. And so having something that they could prescribe first, where it's like, oh, Mr. Timpson, yes, it's called Maui Wowie. You put it on your owies. And then if that does not work, we will try to mix up your terpenoid profile. But I'm pretty sure that this one is what you need.
That was great. I have to say
but
that.
why is that not the story that we have to deal with, as opposed to like how? And then now it just gets like worse. You're like, how many people have died of this virus? 170,000. Which ones? Usually the ones that are the most out of shape. God damn.
Mhm.
And like, it's why are we treating ourselves badly? Why hasn't this been like a frontline medicine since like 1942 when they took it out of the pharmacopoeia?
Yep. I did hospice
question.
care and nursing. Do you want me to go? Can I go, Dre, or do you want to go?
What's that?
Do you want to talk or do you want me to talk?
No, go. God, you're
I did hospice care and nursing for many, many, many years. So I was in healthcare for 22 years. And I have sat and dispensed more doses of liquid morphine than I would ever want to count in my life. But I think that, I mean, if people don't like cannabis for a million other reasons, one reason that they should support it is for hospice care. We drug people out of their ever-loving minds to watch them die. We essentially decrease their breathing, their movement in their gut, all of those things through pharmaceuticals. We hasten their death. And in the process of hastening their death through controlling their pain, we cause them to hallucinate. We cause them to not be present with their families. Cannabis has a space there, and it has a very big space. Being able to give a tincture instead of Roxanol, I think, would be probably absolutely life-changing for hospice families and adding some dignity in death. That was one of my big things with this. Is I really have great respect for the doctors and nurses that care for patients like that, but I have seen horror stories, and we just can do better. It can be a frontline defense. It can be the first thing we prescribe instead of the last thing.
But are there any studies? Can they even get a study on this where it's like, because that's a level of care that they're providing. That's a medical care. They did studies. This wasn't just invented. And so why has that been studied? No, why not? Oh, because it's a federal crime. Why is it a federal crime? Racism. You got to be fucking kidding me, right? Well, actually, first off, it was racism. But then in 1969, Timothy Leary actually hired a good lawyer and they got it disqualified for violating your Fifth Amendment rights. Go on. But if you go back into the 1930s, it gets even more racist. And you're like, so seriously, though, why is this still the law?
Racism.
It just did. Well, it's just this prejudice. And so like when I've already made up my mind, I don't have to fucking listen to you. And that's the wall that the movement has just been hitting for so long.
Yep.
It's like, okay, I want you to know that that's you. And so I try to explain this to people, but there's just not that many people that I run into anymore that are against it's lawful regulated use. But I do live in a legal state,
Yep.
Well, I think
I've-
the polls show it. Go ahead.
Well, and I've learned that you have to, until somebody has true skin in the game, or you can reach them on a level that they have experienced themselves, you do not get the understanding that you're looking for, because we can beat racism into their head. We can talk about federal prohibition, but until you make it something that they can feel in their heart and they know suffering and they've seen it, that's when they understand. And I've had people, when I started this 6 years ago, I had people 6 years ago tell me to go fuck myself, and legislators that were shitty. And I had a legislator that passed around a photo of me that was taken for a magazine shoot of me fake smoking a joint. But those people have come back to me and said, my grandchild has seizures. My mother has cancer. Can you help me?
Yeah.
So once skin is in the game is when they start to understand.
That's right.
Outside of, you know, those of us 90s kids that grew up and, you know, smoked weed when we were young. I mean, we understand it's not harmful.
And you're talking about the medical skin. They also have to realize there's the social justice, the equity skin, the one where if you make it right for everybody, as far as like, first off, a first option for wellness. I mean, let me have the chance to smoke a joint before I take a pill. All right, cool. I didn't shit myself because the pill has this big disclaimer. A joint, I'm gonna go eat a pizza, you know. And then, but again, the racism. When people, the hard part is trying to get people who are already like, I don't have to listen to you. Like the fact that it's so passe that people can be like, no, it's just childish endeavor. No one's in jail for this. It's not hurting. You know, it's not a priority. It's not a priority for them because it's not heroin. We can all agree heroin's not great. Like I don't say legalize heroin or let's create heroin dispensaries, but
do you say like, hey, that pathway that we made, like that, just we bulldozed and paved right to you to be addicted to heroin through laws, and we made a lot of money selling those pharmaceuticals, are bad. Have they said that? No, they don't give a fuck.
No.
Yes, next quarter, man.
We have some. Yep. We would love for you guys to come follow up with us in about 3 weeks because we have something in line with this conversation that we're going to release that we have done in South Dakota that I think is really important. And it's really important to see because this is a very racist state. It's a very predominantly Native American state. And so, Dre, you know what I'm talking about, that thing. We should talk in a few weeks because we're going to make some.
Is there a social equity component in the ballot initiatives that are on that are seeking to legalize medical and adult use?
There is not, because it's a separate fight. It's a fight that when we have this conversation legislatively in January, sentence commutation and social equity and basically expungement are all conversations that needed to be had separate from this, because if we put them in adult use and we put them in medical, then we're convoluting the issue and we're not able to really showcase how incredibly harmful and how many lives have been destroyed due to that. So it needed its separate spotlight.
You can do a campaign like, hey, you racist ass, legalization helps you too. I don't know.
I try not to be the bad one. I have Dre, who obviously hangs out with me when we do public things to make sure I don't get myself in trouble.
How many counties are in South Dakota?
Dre?
67.
67 possible licenses then. One per county. So that's not bad.
No.
That's not bad. And then, but hopefully the counties aren't like, well, we'll have one dispensary, but no cultivation. They might, right?
Well, then you just make friends with your friend who cultivates and you can
That's right.
do your little thing here. Really, I think the biggest license that's going to be up for grabs is going to be Sturgis.
Yeah.
Oh, I could see that having one good day of business. Now, Sturgis, of course, is not just a day. Is it a week or more?
A week. It's a week.
Like week to 10 days.
So
I know.
That's cool.
That right there, though, wait, Sturgis occurs in South Dakota. How do you have so many staunch assholes that are protecting their people, but they know clearly 1,000 fucking bikers are doing this raping and pillaging of a small
Seriously,
town?
you think them bikers aren't smoking weed? Come on.
Well, would you like the statistics for where we're at for felony arrests and money seized in the last week? Because last time I checked, it was like $70,000 that they had seized from them. And multiple felonies, DUI arrests. They kind of give us a running tally every day on our news. So let's see. You guys can keep going. I'll bust
Yeah,
in
but
when I got
that's
it.
great because then if it's multiple felonies, I mean, like, take one of those off the table, and you're going to probably get more tax revenue if you actually had those cannabis sales be legal at Sturgis, because I know that they would be buying them pre-rolls. They got to go right in, they got to right out, and so I just don't see why that wasn't on the table. That's too bad.
Well, let me tell you where we're at. So
Yeah.
Sturgis is a tiny community. It's this community that swells.
It's named after a fish, right?
No, it's a
That's a
sturgeon. Sturgeon. So this year, just in
Whoa.
Sturgis, we have 106 DUI arrests, 161 miscellaneous drug arrests, 81 felony drug arrests, 822 citations, 2,240 warnings, $71,078.00 seized, 7 vehicles seized for drug possession, 14 non-injury accidents, 30 injuries, 1 fatal, and 2 fatalities. That's just from this week. And we're not done yet.
Is Sturgis going on now?
Yes, it is. That's why we have the running tally. So that Sturgis license, my sister-in-law actually lives at the end of the main street in Sturgis, and they leave for this week. But I'm like, I'm going to set up a freaking lemonade stand and sell pre-rolls in your front yard.
That's right. And so, like, that's the thing. Sturgis sounds like a wonderful opportunity to make money for 1 week a year, and then that's it. Because after that, you got nothing. Everybody's gone.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah.
but here's the beautiful thing. If you are a biker headed to Sturgis from anywhere in the continental USA that has a medical card, you can come and purchase it anywhere in the state because Melissa wrote reciprocity into her bill.
You got to pass that reciprocity on
Heck yeah,
first Tuesday in November.
That's right.
that's right. Reciprocity was important. So we could, our tourism, people can come. We have great faces, great places, and great medicating spaces.
Dre, Melissa, thank you so much for coming on today. Where can we go to find, follow, support what you guys got going on at South Dakotans for Better Marijuana Laws?
At sd2020.org. You can find everything you need to know on how to volunteer, get involved, donate, get a great shirt, all sorts of stuff for South Dakota. That's where all of it is.
That's right. That's where it's happening.
Awesome.
Yes.
We will throw those links in the description. Thanks again for coming on, and thanks for tuning in for Cannabis Legalization News, everyone. We will see you on Wednesday.
Okay. Thank you.
Have a great day, guys.